begin today at the Mishnah, towards the bottom of Chav Beis Amud Beis. Sagt Heilige Mishnah, Shavuos shaloi oichel. A person takes an oath, I will not eat. V'ochal, v'shasa, he ate and he drank. Ein chayev ela achas. He's chayev only once for both together. When a person says achila, the term achila includes actually to drink as well, as the Gemara will bring the source for this. So if you are over on this Shavuos and it's all in one lapse of awareness, so behelam echad the halacha always is that you chayev only one carbon. Now Shavuos shaloi oichel v'shaloi yashte. If the person said a Shavuos, now first he said I will not eat, and then he said I will not drink, and v'ochal v'shasa, he ate and he drank, so then chayev shtayim, then he'll be chayev twice. Okay, so over here in this case, the Gemara will explain that once he made a Shavuos that he would not eat, and that includes not drinking, when you make a second Shavuos, it doesn't take effect on the first Shavuos. Once you have one Shavuos, usually the second Shavuos is nothing. But here it says, no, you chayev twice. Now, Shavuos shaloi oichel, a person says a Shavuos, I will not eat. And it didn't specify anymore. V'ochal, pas chitim, or pas seirim, or pas kusmin, he ate a bread from wheat, from barley, and from spelt. Ein chayev el achas. It's one Shavuos I will not eat, so it includes whatever it is that he eats. However, Shavuos shaloi oichel, and he specifies, I will not eat pas chitin, wheat bread, or pas seirim, barley bread, or pas kusmin, and spelt bread, v'ochal, and then he eats from these breads. Chayev al kolachas v'achas. Here he'll be chayev on each one of these breads. Similar regarding drinking. Shavuos shaloi eshte. Person makes a Shavuos, I will not drink, and it doesn't specify what to drink. V'shasa mashkin harbe, and he drinks many different beverages. Ein chayev el achas. He's chayev once, included all in the Shavuos not to drink. Shavuos shaloi eshte yayin v'shemen udvash. If he makes a Shavuos, I will not drink wine, oil, or honey. So here he specified the three, v'shasa, and he drinks from these three, chayev al kolachas v'achas. Here will be chayev on each one of them. Shavuos shaloi oichel, if a person makes a Shavuos not to eat, v'ochal oichlin she'einon ru'uyin la'achila, and he eats food that are not edible, or v'shasa mashkin she'einon ru'uyin l'shtiyah, or drinks things that you can't, they're not drinkable. Potter. So it's potter, it's not included in the Shavuos that he said. When a person says achila shtiyah, he means things that are drinkable, edible. Shavuos shaloi oichel, but a person that makes a Shavuos that he will not eat. V'ochal nevelis etreifis shkotzim u'ramasim, and he eats all these forbidden foods. So then chayev, he will be chayev because physically they're edible. The Torah says you're not allowed to eat them. And Rashi here gives the example that the Gemara said before. It's like a lion that's there, not allowing you to eat it, but it's edible, so it's included in the Shavuos that the person made. However, Rab Shimon paiter. Rab Shimon says that he's pater for the Shavuos because these are things that are forbidden from Torah. Mushba v'oimid mahar Sinai. There's already an oath that every Yid accepted at Har Sinai not to eat these things. So a second Shavuos does not take effect on something which is already also from before. Now, Amar, a person says, Kainam ishti nanesli, I'm taking a neder that my wife should not have a hana from me. But when is that though? Im achalti ayayim, if I eat today. That's the condition of this neder. And v'hu achal nevelis treifis shkatzim eramasim, and he ate from these forbidden foods. So in this case, even according to Rab Shimon, harei ishtei asura, his wife will be aser, because the condition was not to eat, and he ate. So once he ate, it takes effect, even though we said before that according to Rab Shimon, these things are forbidden from before already. So you can't make a second Shavuos. But over here, the point is not a second Shavuos taking effect over here. Over here, the person said that there's a neder, that his wife will not have a no from him. It's just a condition that he will not eat. So over here, that condition, he ate, it takes effect.
He says it's earlier.
It's what?
It's earlier. He ate earlier than when he made the Shavuos, no?
No, afterwards. That day he ate. Yeah.
Oh, here he says earlier.
Talk to Gemara Amar Abchia Barav and Amar Shmuel. Shavuos shaloi oichel v'shasa chayev. When it says in the Mishnah that a person says that he will not eat and he drinks, he'll be chayev. So that what do you see from here? That drinking is part of the term eating. So Ibai say Misvare, you could say that this is something that is self-understood logically. Ibai say Mikra, or we have a source and a pasuk for this. Ibai say Misvare, you could say that you see it in the Svare, because the Amalei Inish L'chavre, we see in the terminology of people when one says to his friend, Nitoi Midi, come, let's taste something, and Va'aili Va'achli V'shasi, and they come and they eat and they drink. So we see that this term of Nitoi to eat includes both eating and drinking together. So that's the svara based on the way people speak. Okay, but then the Gemara says, kra, or there's a source in a pasuk. And Taisus here says, sometimes the Gemara says, once you have a svara, you don't need any pasuk. But apparently this svara over here is not so solid. You can argue with this. So therefore the Gemara brings a pasuk as well. Shtiya b'chlal achile, where do you see in the pasuk that shtiya? The drinking is included in the term eating, because the Ameresh Lakish, Minayin l'shtiya shehi b'chlal achile, shenema, the pasuk says, by the eating of Ma'aseh Sheni, ba'achalta, l'fnei Hashem Elokecha, b'mokem asher yivcha l'shakne shmoi sham, you eat the Ma'aser in Yerushalayim, and it says, Ma'aser the gancha v'tiraishcha, that from your Ma'aser that you're eating, it says the term achila, it says Ma'aser the gancha from the grain, and v'tiraishcha from your vineyard. Now the tirash chamruhu, so the tirash means drinking wine. Uksev, and the pasuk uses the term ve'achalta, that you will eat. So you see that the term achila can be used even regarding wine, even regarding drinking wine. But how do you know he's drinking wine? V'dilma al yedei anigrain. Maybe the wine, the tirash, the pasuk is talking about is when wine is added as a flavor into some kind of a dish, some food that's called anigrain. What is this anigrain? The Amar Rabba Bashmuel, anigrain is maya the silky. Anigrain is when you have beets that are cooked and you have the water, the beet juice, and with that they added wine into it, and there was other ingredients, as Rashi says there, pilpulin, spices, so on. And then there's achsigrain, which is maya the kulishilki. Chsigrain is from waters of other vegetables, any vegetables that are cooked, and they also added wine to this. So this is some kind of a food that they ate. So maybe that's the tirash that the pasuk is referring to, not necessarily drinking wine. The raya is from this pasuk. Also regarding Ma'aseh Sheni, it says v'nesata kesef v'chol ha'sheta'av nafshecha, that you use the money to buy whatever your heart will desire. Ba'bakar u'batzayin, from the sheep, from animals, ubayayin, ubasheichar, from wine and from sheichar, which is beer, simply. So now, what do we see here? Yayin chamruhu, the wine, it says clearly the pasuk yayin, which is wine, and uksiv v'achalta, and the pasuk says that you eat from this. That's what the pasuk there says, that you eat. So you see that achila is referred to even drinking wine. But again, the Gemara asks, maybe here when it says wine, it doesn't mean that you're just drinking wine, but it's referring to the wine being added as a flavor into this anigrain food. So the Gemara says, no, but here the pasuk goes on to say sheichar ksiv. Sheichar means midi de mishaker. The sheichar is a description of the wine. That a person is drinking just the wine separately, not just as wine as some flavor in food, which is not going to make the person intoxicated. When the person drinks wine, then you could say that it's mishaker. So because it says sheichar, that's a description of the word yayin in the pasuk. Frag the Gemara, how do you know? Maybe v'dilma devela keilis. Maybe when it says the word sheichar, it's not written here to describe the wine that he's drinking, but it's a separate thing. The sheichar means this devela, this fig that comes from this place keilis, which is a very strong flavored devela that has an ability to make a person intoxicated. The Tanya, as we learned in the Braisa, ochal devela keilis. A person eats this dveila from keilis, v'shosa dvash v'cholav, and then he drinks honey and milk. V'nichnas lemikdash v'avad. Then he goes into the Beis Hamikdash and does avodah, serves there. Chayiv, he's chayiv misa, just like when you drink wine, because this you become intoxicated from this. So maybe in the pasuk sheichar is a separate thing, and yayin just refers to yayin that's used as a flavor in this anigrain food. Ella says the Gemara, no. How do we know what sheichar here means? Gomar sheichar min nazir. It says here the term of sheichar, and it says the term sheichar by a nazir. Ma'ala halon yayin, sheichar by the nazir only means wine, because by a nazir sheichar cannot mean this fig. But by a nazir he's only also to eat from a vineyard and any wine that comes from a vineyard. Afkan yayin, here as well when it says sheichar, it's referring to the wine, and it's saying that he's drinking the wine that he'll become shikr from it. Okay, so that's the source in the pasuk here. So now we go back to the Mishnah. Amarava fanana mitanina. This concept that drinking is included in eating, that's what the Mishnah is saying here. As the Gemara began, Shavuos shelo yechal v'achal v'shasa. A person makes a shvua that he will not eat, and then he ate and he drank. And chayev achas. So he's chayev only once. So what was the Mishnah coming to say by this? If you say that drinking is included in the term of eating, so it's so the Tana is coming and teaching me. So he's teaching me here this point that the drinking is part of the eating, and therefore it's behelam echad. It's repeating the same isser in one lapse of awareness, so it's chayiv only once. But if you're going to say that drinking is not part of eating, so the halacha will also be that it's chayiv once. But the Tana doesn't have to say this because if a person would make a shvuah that I'm not going to eat, and the person went and ate, and then additionally he went and did some other work, would it be necessary to say that he's chayiv only once? The fact that he did another work, it's totally not related to the shvuah that he said. So if you would say that drinking has nothing to do with eating, it's a different thing. If it's not in the term of eating, it wouldn't be necessary to say that if he then ate and drank, that he's chayiv only once. So you see in the Mishnah that drinking is included in the term of eating. Amalei Abaye. So Abaye says to Rava based on this. So what's the next case of the Mishnah? So drinking is included in eating. Aim is safer. The Mishnah goes on to say, person makes a shvuah, I will not eat first. And then he says a shvuah that I will not drink. And then he went and ate and drank. Chayiv shtayim. So here the Mishnah says that he's chayiv twice for the two shvuahs that he made. But the question is, how does the second shvuah take effect? When he made the first shvuah that he will not eat, so it's a lei b'shtia. As you explained, not eating includes also not drinking. So the shvuah is also asks him from drinking. So then ki oma shelo yashta. Then when he makes the second shvuah not to drink, amai chayiv. Why would he be chayiv? Ilu ama shaloi eshta trei zimni mi mechayev tarti. If a person repeats the same shvuah, I will not drink, would he be chayev twice? The rule always is the second shvuah does not take effect on the first shvuah. Ein issa chalal isser. So if he makes a shvuah not to eat, which includes not to drink, how would the shvuah of not to drink take effect? Amalei, so Rava answers that you're right. You have to switch the order in the shvuahs that the Mishnah is saying that this person made. Hassam, the second case of the Mishnah is, he said first, the Omar Shaloi Eshta. First he said, I will not drink. So that's limited only to not drinking. And V'hada Omar Shaloi Oichel. And then he said, I will not eat. Now eating is going to take effect because that includes more. Not to drink and not to eat as well. The Shtiyah B'chlal Achila. Drinking is included in the term of Achila, of eating. But Isa, it is. But Achila B'chlal Shtiyah Lesa. But the term of eating is not included in the term of not drinking. So therefore, both shvuahs take effect and will be chayiv twice. But now, according to this, when we're switching the order of the shvuahs in the Mishnah, so what would that mean? If the person first said the shvuah that I will not eat, and then v'shaloi eshta, then he said I will not drink, and then v'achal v'shasa, and then he ate and drank. So according to what Rav is answering, what would be the halach in such a case? In this order, ein chayiv alachas. So it'll be chayiv only once. Once he said not to eat, that includes not drinking. So then the next shvuah not to drink does not take effect. But the question on this is, ihachi, if so, the Tana Reisha. In the Reisha of the Mishnah it says, that if a person makes a shvuah not to eat, and then he eats and drinks, he's chayiv only once, because it's all included in one shvuah, and he's repeating the same isser again. Let it say a bigger chiddush. Listening, it should say, shvuah shaloi oichel v'shaloi yeshta. That even if the person made two shvuahs, first not to eat and then not to drink, ein chayiv alachas. Then in this case, he'll be chayiv only once, because the second shvuah will not take effect. And the kol sheken, and I'll understand that definitely shaloi oichel l'chodei. That if he just makes a shvuah not to eat, and then he eats and drinks, that he will only be chayiv once. So therefore, the Gemara goes back to the original pshat in the Mishnah, the order of the shvuahs, the way we have it in the Mishnah. El alaylam kidiktani. We don't have to change the order in the Mishnah. And the case where it said that he would be chayiv twice, he first said, I will not eat, and then he said, I will not drink. The question was, but how does the second shvuah take effect? Eating already includes not drinking. The answer is, no, this is different. V'shani hacha, this case is different. Kiv in the Amma shelo yoichel, when a person makes a shvuah not to eat, and v'ha the Amma shelo yashte, and then he makes a shvuah not to drink. So Gali adaitei, he reveals his intent. The hach achila the Amma achila geredesehi. Even though usually achila means both not to eat and not to drink, but obviously by him, not to eat means only not to eat, and therefore he's adding another shvuah not to drink, and therefore he'll be chayiv twice. The second shvuah takes effect. Ravashi masnisen namideke. The words of the Mishnah will also prove this point, because the Mishnah says shvuah shelo eichel. A person makes a shvuah that he will not eat, and then v'achal eichlin she'ein ro'yin la'achila, and he eats food that are not edible. And the Mishnah goes on to say v'shasa mashkin she'ein ro'yin l'shtiya, and he drinks from things that are not made for drinking. So potter, he'll be potter for this. That's the Mishnah. So now, what do you see here? He only made one shvuah, it seems. A shvuah not to eat. And it said because he ate or drank things that are not edible or drinkable, therefore he's potter. Ha ru'uyin. But if these are things that are fit for eating and drinking, chayiv, he'll be chayiv for the eating and for the drinking. Va'amai hashvuah shaloi oichel ka'amar. The person made only a shvuah not to eat. He didn't make a shvuah not to drink. So what do you see from here? That the shvuah that he made not to eat includes also a shvuah not to drink. But the Gemara says not necessarily. Dilme de amatarti. Maybe the case over here is the person first made a shvuah not to eat, and then he also made a shvuah not to drink. Shvuah shaloi eichel, and also a shvuah shaloi yashte. And now the Mishnah doesn't specify it. The Mishnah doesn't say it clearly, but it's self-understood that regarding the eating, he made a shvuah not to eat, and regarding discussing when a person drinks what's not fit for drinking, he made a separate shvuah of not to drink. So therefore, you can't bring a raya from there that shtiya is included in achila. But the Gemara brought a raya from the beginning of the Mishnah. Okay, going back to the Mishnah, it said shvuah shaloi oichel v'achal pas chitin chulu. A person that made a shvuah that he will not eat, and then he ate from different kinds of foods. He ate from different kinds of bread. He's chayiv only once. But then the Mishnah said, if the person made a shvuah and he specified in the shvuah shelo eichel pas chitim, pas seirim, pas kisman, I'm not going to eat from these breads, then he's chayiv for each one of them separately. How do we know to say this? V'dilme, maybe interpret the meaning of his shvuah differently. Lemifter nafshei machrenaisa ka'amar ka'asi. When he's specifying that he's not going to eat from the wheat bread, barley bread, spelt bread, he's not coming to make three distinct shvuahs. He's coming to make a shvuah that he doesn't want to eat. But then he wants to clarify, I don't mean I'm not going to eat at all. I'm not going to fast. I'm not going to eat only from this. So if the point of him elaborating and making and saying these three things is just to exclude other things, so then we can't say that the shvuah for these three things are considered to be three separate shvuahs. He only specified it to exclude others. So how do we know to be mechayiv him three times? Answers the Gemara. So here the Gemara is going to analyze the language that he used very specifically. So again, the lashon of the Mishnah was he made a shvuah shelo eichel pas chitim, pas sa'irim, upas kusmen. So therefore says the Gemara, because if he only means is to exclude other foods, so he should have just spelled out and said, I make a shvuah not to eat, and that not eating includes these three kinds of breads. Why did he say pas chitim, pas seirim, pas kusman, specifying three times bread? Says the Gemara, no, I'll tell you why he said that. Because v'dilme, lachos, because if you're going to say, he makes a shvuah shaloi oichel, and then he just says chitin, seirim, and kusman, maybe the chitin, seirim, and kusman means not even to eat them. But it means he's saying that he's not going to even chew them, because he doesn't say pas. Pas is when it's made into a proper bread. But if he says shvuah shelo eichel chitin, seirim, and kusman without saying pas, so that could mean just not eat the kernels of the wheat or the barley or the spelt as is without just chewing them. So therefore, he says pas. So the question still remains, how do you know that he's coming to make three separate shvuahs and not just to simply exclude from other foods? Says the Gemara, he has to say the word pas to mean that it's eating bread, not just chewing kernels. So he should have said pas, chitin seirim v'kusman. So pas, that clarifies that it's bread, and then just add that it's chitin seirim v'kusman and not anything else. Why is he saying three times pas? But the Gemara says that also, We could explain why he said it's not enough to say one time pas. V'dilme pas chitin lechol. If you would only say one time pas, I would say that the bread, the wheat bread is taka bread, that he's not going to eat it. But Seirin Kusman v'lachos. But maybe the Seirin Kusman that he did not specify that it's bread, maybe that is even just the kernels of the barley and the spelt that he's not going to chew it. So the Gemara says no, but still the Havale Lemeima pas chitin vishal Seirin vishal Kusman. He should have said the term of pas chitin, and then when he adds vishal Seirin vishal Kusman, it's understood that the Seirin and the Kusman is not the kernels. It's also referring to bread of barley and of spelt, and therefore it's not necessary for him to say the word pas 3 times. But the Gemara says, well, no, it's actually still necessary. Even if he just wants to exclude other foods, it's still necessary for him to explain and describe what exactly it is that he's not going to eat, excluding other things. Because if you're only going to use this term that the Gemara just said, pas, and then vishal seid and vishal kusmin, I would say vidilma yidei tarubis. Maybe what this means is he's not going to eat a bread, which is a multi-grain bread, wheat, barley, and spelt. So you can't just say vishal. Says the Gemara, but not still. The person could have said in his Shavuos, if that's what he meant, like a multi-grain bread, so eime v'chein shel sa'orim v'chein shel kusman. So you can use the term v'chein. I'm not going to eat pas, and so too not going to eat from sa'orim, and so too not from kusman. So that's clear that it's not one multi-grain bread. I'm not going to eat from this bread and from this bread and from this bread. But all he's coming to say is to specify these to exclude others. That's what I would say. So the fact now, pas, lamali. Why did he elaborate and say this bread, and he used the term pas again and again? So that shma mino l'chalek. He's using the term pas again and again, not just to exclude other foods, but actually to divide his shvuah, that he's making 3 separate shvuahs, and therefore if he eats from these 3 breads, he'll be chayev 3 times. Now similarly, the Gemara goes on to the next case where the Mishnah says, shvuah shalei eshta. Person simply says, without specifying, I will not drink. V'shasa mashkan harbi, drinks from many beverages, and chayev ela achas is chayev once. But if the person specifies in his shvuah and says, I will not drink wine, honey, or oil and honey, so then he's chayev for all 3 separately. Okay, so now here the Gemara goes through the same discussion, but here the Gemara asks, Bishloi mahasam. So in the case before regarding the breads, so we just explained. The Amrit, you said that meyastrele pas l'chiyuva. Because in the language of the Shavuot, the person said separately the bread, the barley bread, the wheat bread, barley bread, and spelt bread. So that means l'chiyuva is going to be chayiv each one separately. But over here, in the case where the person specifies wine and oil and honey, so the fact that he's specifying doesn't prove that it's 3 separate shvuos. What else should have he said? Maybe all he's coming to say is he's limiting his shvuah to exclude other beverages, but it's really all one shvuah that includes all 3 together. So here there's no extra word; it just says yayin, shem, and dvash. So what is it that's indicating that it's 3 separate shvuos? Rav Papa explains, Hacha b'munachin lefanav askina. We're talking about a situation where the person has wine and oil and honey right in front of him. If so, there's something that's extra in the language of his shvuah. So then the person should have just simply said, Shvuah shalei eshta elu, a shvuah that I will not drink from these. So why is he specifying the name of all 3 things? That's what divides it into 3 different shvuahs. But the Gemara says you can't say that because Elu is not enough if he just wants to say that he's not going to drink only these 3, excluding others. Because Vidilme, Elu hu dolei shasina. If he would say Elu, that would mean I'm just not going to drink from these, what's in front of me. But Achrin shasina, other wine, other oil or honey I will drink. And he wants to say that he's not going to drink any. So Elu is not enough. Allah, the Gemara says, what he could have said is the Omar Shavuah Deloy Shasina Kogainelo. He could have said, I'm not going to drink like what is in front of me. And that would include not only what's in front of him, but anything. But the Gemara says, no, that expression would also not be enough if he's trying to say, I'm not going to drink the wine, oil, and any honey. Because Dilme Kogain Elu would mean, that expression of Kogain Elu would mean Deloy Shasinu, Deloy Shasina, Batzer Mahachi. But it's feimachi shasina. What he's saying is that I'm not going to drink less than this, but more than this I will drink. In other words, maybe it's referring to the amounts that it has over here in front of him. That's why he's saying kogain elo, like these amounts that there are in front of him. Says the Gemara, Elo Kagain, what he should have said is, Kagain the Ama Shvua Shalei Eshte Mimin Elo. He should have said, a Shvua that I will not drink from these kinds. So from these kinds refers not only to a specific amount, but it's referring to these kinds of the wine, oil, and honey that's in front of him. That would have been enough. Why is he specifying the names of Yayin, Shemen, and Dvash? So the Gemara still argues and says, No v'dilme min eluhu delishasin. If you would use that term, so then you would say that all he's saying is, I'm not going to drink from these kinds, but ha'inu gafai shasina. But this wine, oil, and honey that's actually in front of me, I will drink. So how do we know that it means not to drink what's in front of him and not to drink from any of these kinds, even what's not in front of him? So B'kitzur, we still are left with the question, how do we know that he's coming to specify 3 separate Shavuos? Says the Gemara, Eime, rather, what he should have said is, Shalei eshte elu uminayo. I'm not going to drink from this and from their kind. In other words, so the point is, since it's in front of him, it's not necessary to elaborate and say the name of these 3 things. It's right in front of him. He could have just said, I'm not going to drink from these and like these. And that would have been enough. So therefore, when he specifies Yain, Shemen, and Dvash, he's coming to say 3 separate Shavuos and will be chayiv 3 times. That's one shot. The case here is, there's someone that his friend is convincing him and begging him to eat or to drink from these beverages. And the Amaloi is telling him, Boy, v'shesei yayin shemen and dvash. Come and drink with me wine, oil, and honey. So now, what should have he responded to him if he wants to make a shvuah that he's not going to drink with him? A shvuah that I'm not going to drink with you. In other words, according to this pshat, Tosfos over here says the whole shvuah does not refer to the fact that he's not going to drink any wine, any oil, or any honey. The whole shvuah all relates just to this person, that I'm not going to come and drink with you. So that all you should say is, no, I'm not joining you, I'm not going to drink with you. Yayin v'shemen udvash lamali. Why did he specify that I'm not going to drink with you wine, oil, or honey? Chayev akolachas v'achas. It's specified that when he drinks with this person, he'll be chayev for all 3 separately. Okay, now the Gemara begins sort of a new subject, explaining the Mishnah, based on a Mishnah here later in the Masechta. So Tanan also, we learned later in the Masechta, and this is regarding a Shavuos apikodim. If a person gives a deposit for someone, and now he wants to come and retrieve it, and he says to the shomer, Tenli chitim esayrin akusm sheyesh lebiyatcha. Return to me, give me back the wheat, the barley, and the spelt that you have in your hands for me. Now the person responds, Shvuah, I swear, she'en lecha biyadi klum. I have nothing of yours in my hand. So, and he lied about this. This is the Shavuos HaPekadon, where a person swears falsely about a Pekadon that he has from someone. What's the halach? Even though he said a Shavuah denying 3 things that he was trying to retrieve from him, ein chayiv el achas. He's only chayiv once because he said one Shavuah, she'en lecha biyadi klum. However, if the shomer says, Shavuah she'en lecha biyadi chitin usa'ayrin v'kusmen, a Shavuah you don't have in my hands, not wheat, not barley, and not spelt, then chayiv akolachas v'achas. He specified all 3, he'll be chayiv in all 3. Now, Rabbi Yochanan, on this Rabbi Yochanan says that afila pruta mikula mitzdarefes. If in order to be chayiv for the Shavuos HaPekadon, it has to be worth a pruta, at least the minimum value of a shava pruta. So if the value of a shava pruta between all 3 is going to be that one pruta, it'll all combine. That'll be chayiv that one carbon. You chayiv to bring a carbon asham for this false shvuah. So you can combine from all 3 together. That's the halacha regarding the Shavuos HaPekadon and what Rabbi Yochanan explained about that. So now, Pliga bar Ravache v'Ravina. Ravache and Ravina argued about that Mishnah. Chad Omar, one opinion is, Aproti mechayev, akloli loy mechayev. In the second case of this Mishnah, where the person specified, I don't have from you, I swear not chitin, I have no chitin, no sayrin, no kusmin. So over there, he's chayiv 3 times for the 3 things that he specified. But akloli loy mechayev. On the opening statement of the Shvuah, which is the general thing he said, he's not chayiv separately for that. How did the person begin his Shvuah? He says, Shvuah she'en lecha biyadi. You have nothing in my hands. And then he specifies and says, not wheat, not barley, and not spelt. So one opinion here is, he's only chayiv 3 Shvuahs for the 3 things that he elaborated. But he's not chayiv separately for the general Shvuah, the way he opened the Shvuah. Now, according to this opinion, when Rabbi Yochanan said that you could combine the kezayis, or not the kezayis, sorry, you can combine the shava pruta from all three together, it's not referring to the second case of this Mishnah where the person is chayev for each one of these three Shavuos separately. Because when he's chayev for each one of these three Shavuos separately, you can't combine a shava pruta between the three of them. So Rabbi Yochanan was referring to the first case of the Mishnah, where the person just said, Ein l'cha biyadi klum. And over there he included all three together in one Shavuah. There you could combine from all three together for a shava pruta to be chayev a carbon. Now, but another opinion here is, aklali nami mechayev, that when a person makes this kind of a shvuah in the sefer of this Mishnah, where he begins, Ein l'cha biyadi, that's a general shvuah that he denies, you have nothing in my hands, and then he elaborates and says, not chitim, not seirin, and not kusmin, he's actually chayev 4 times for the general shvuah that he denied, and then afterwards when he elaborated all three, he'll chayev 3 times, so that's 4 times he's chayev. According to this pshat, even in this case, when Rabbi Yochanan said you can combine the Shava Pruta to bring a Asham, it's even regarding the second case of the Mishnah here, because he's chayiv for the general shvuah that he made in the beginning. Okay, so that's the halacha by Shavuos B'Kodem. Now the Gemara brings it back to our Mishnah. Hachamai, what's the halacha in our Mishnah? Could we apply the same argument of Rav Acha and Avina to our Mishnah? When a person makes a shvuah, I shvuah shaloi oichel, shvuah that I will not eat, and then he specifies, I will not eat, not pas chitim, not pas soire, not pas kusman. Do I say over here that it's the same argument? Is he going to be chayiv 3 times, only for the 3 times that he specified? Or will he be chayiv also additionally a 4th time for the opening of the shvuah that I will not eat? Amar Rave, so Rave says, there's no comparison at all. Hachi hashta. How could you compare this? Over there you could say that he's chayiv for the general shvuah that he denied having this pekadin, and then he's chayiv for the details that he elaborated. Why? Because over there, what's the rule by shvuah sapekadin? The ha'i mishtaba v'hada mishtaba chayiv tarti. By shvuah sapekadin, if a person makes a shvuah once, twice, 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, for every time he denies having this pekadin, he's chayiv again, as we'll learn later in the Masechta about this. So therefore, over there you could say that he's chayiv for the general denial in the beginning, and then for the details afterwards. But over here, if you're going to say that he's chayiv already for the opening, that he said that I will not eat, and that takes effect as a general shvuah, that I will not eat anything, aprati amay mechayiv. Then whatever he would elaborate later, he will not be chayiv separately for that, because mushbavayimatu. Once one shvuah takes effect, regarding the shvuah's bitui, not to eat, a second shvuah cannot take effect. Once the first shvuah takes effect, then it's already aser. So therefore, in this case, he will not be chayiv for the general shvuah in the beginning and for the details afterwards. Okay, the Mishnah went and said after this, shvuah shaloi oichel v'chulu. A person makes a shvuah that he will not eat, and the Mishnah says, what happens if he eats from foods that are not edible? So he's going to be potter. That's not included in eating. But then the Mishnah said, according to the Tanakame, if he swears not to eat and he eats from nevelis, trefes, foods that are forbidden to eat, he will be chayiv. The Mishnah seems to be contradicting itself, because you're saying that if a person says he's not going to eat, and he eats food that are not edible, and he drinks what's not drinkable, potter. So it's not included in the term of eating. But then you say that he eats foods that are forbidden to eat, chayiv. So over here he will be chayiv. Ma'ishna reisha, the potter. Why in the reisha is he potter? Because this is not edible. Or ma'ishna sefer the chayiv. And why in the sefer is he chayiv? For a yid, all these forbidden foods are not edible either. So why would that be included in the term of achila that a person said in his shvuah? Answers the Gemara, hole kashya. We can answer that this question is not a question, because I can say reisha b'stam, and the reisha in the Mishnah is when a person just said I will not eat, and he didn't specify what is included in that, and then I say not eating in general means just foods that are edible, and the sefer is b'mafarish, and the sefer is where the person specified clearly what it is that he will not eat. And therefore it includes also, he specified clearly that it includes also these forbidden foods. And therefore, if he'll eat those forbidden foods, he will be chayiv. So that's not the question. But the Gemara asks, What is a question on the Mishnah? Mefarish nami, even in a case where the person specified, I will not eat from these forbidden foods. So mefarish nami gufe tikshi, that itself is also a question. How do we explain the Tanakama? Amai, why is he chayiv if he eats from these forbidden foods? Mushba mahar sinaihu, since there's already a shvua from har sinai that these are aser, his shvua that he now makes cannot take effect. Because ein isser chalal isser, the isser of the shvua cannot take effect here. Okay, so we had this Gemara already a few times before. Here's the source. Here's where the Gemara brings this machlokes. So Rav, Ushmuel, Rabbi Yechon, and the Amri, all three of them explain the pshat in the Mishnah. Bekailol dvarim hamutarim im dvarim asurim. That the case over here is when we said that the person specified, he specified and said, I'm not going to eat from nevelis, from food that are forbidden, that was not shechted properly, and he also said from shchutais, from the foods, from shechted, from meat that is kosher. So because in his shvuah he specified and was kailol things that are forbidden together with things that are permitted, it takes effect. Because when doesn't it take effect? If you're only making a shvuah on those foods that are already forbidden. But if he clearly specifies and includes both, then it takes effect. That's the taich that the Gemara is saying now, when it says here b'kailol, when he's specifying both. But Reish Lakish says the pshat is that no, he's not kailol. Kailol, according to Reish Lakish, it will not take effect. Rather, the case over here is iyatamaitza ella. In the case here, where the Tanakama is saying that if he eats from these forbidden foods, his shvuah takes effect, it's only in one of these cases. Either the person specified and said that I'm not going to eat from these forbidden foods even a half a shear, meaning the Isser is a kazayas, and he made a shvuah not to eat even half. And that's Valiba de Rabbanon. And that's according to the Rabbanon that the Shvuah takes effect on less than a Kazayas, only if he specifies that clearly, as we had here in the first mission of this Pedic, or Ibistam, or even without specifying that it's such a small amount. Aliba de Rabbi Akiva, according to Rabbi Akiva, that says that every Isser in the Torah, the Isser is a Kazayas, but by a Shvuah, it takes effect even on a Mashahu. So therefore, you can't say that it's already also from before, because what's also before is a Kazayas. And the shvuah is less, even a mashuhu. When a person says he's not going to eat, it means even a kol shuhu. That's why his shvuah is adding even smaller amount, therefore it takes effect. Says the Gemara Bishlam, Rabbi Yechon did not want to interpret the Mishnah like Reish Lakish said, because the Maikim law, lemasnisin kedivri akol. Rabbi Yechon wants to explain a svara how the Tanakama of the Mishnah can work according to everybody. According to Reish Lakish, you're going to have to say either the Mishnah goes like the Rabbanan's opinion, or you could say it goes like Rabbi Akiva. But you can't say that the Mishnah is according to both opinions. So therefore, you wanted to say according to everybody. Ela Reish Lakish, my time, but Reish Lakish, why did he not explain the Mishnah like Rabbi Yechon and Svara? That as soon as you kailul additional permitted things, the shvuah takes effect even on something which is asr. Reish Lakish will tell you that rule does not apply by a shvuah. Ki amrinon is a kailul. When you say this concept that even though this is already aser, but I could bring now a second iser on this, the iser haba me'elav. That's regarding a iser that just comes on its own. The example that Rashi gives is nevela on Yom Kippur. So this nevela was already aser from before; it's forbidden. Then Yom Kippur comes. The Isser of eating of Yom Kippur will be added to this. Why will it be added? Because when Yom Kippur comes, now not only the nevela is also, you're not allowed to eat any foods. So it's kailul additional foods. Once it's kailul additional foods, it will take effect. But Yom Kippur is an Isser that comes on its own. However, the Isser abalya de atzmai, but an Isser that comes through the person himself, lo yamrinon. That we do not say over here. Even if the person is including additional isurim, it will not take effect. So this concept of Isser Kailul is not applying in this case according to Reish Lakish. There's different pirushim why that is. The pshat in this distinction, one pshat is that the Isser Haba Me'elav is a stronger Isser. Yom Kippur comes on its own, therefore it will take effect when it includes also permitted things. However, the Isser that comes through the person that's making the Shvuah, over here, it cannot take effect. It's a weaker Isser that he makes, that will not take effect even when he includes also permitted things.